debate you to the death.
You're gonna debate me. Okay,
Hold
let's do
on.
this.
Do I should turn off the camera here and turn because my camera cannot be on two things at once because I have an amazing camera. I mean,
Yeah, take your time.
it's better than not having any camera, but you know, does your audience know even who I am?
Not
Have you
yet. I've been
hold on?
I've been covering the school shooting yesterday, and I've been
Yeah.
covering Luigi Maglione or whatever his name is.
Oh, so what's your opinion on the
Mhm.
Luigi
He's a murderer.
CEO killing?
Murderers go to jail.
Apart from that,
Straight up.
I mean
That's my opinion.
that's the simple opinion. Is that all? Is that it?
I think people celebrating him are kind of gross.
But do you think that people? I mean, celebrating, sure. But do you think that it's bad, for example, not to be sad about it happening?
I
You're
don't care if you're
saying
not sad. Like if you have no opinion and you're like don't care, that's fine.
no. It's not like you don't have an opinion. It's like you think, yeah, the person basically sentenced many people to death through paperwork means. So, like, I'm not gonna shed a tear because something happened to him. Something along those lines.
I think that's
It's not exactly celebrating, but it's not
in
exactly
value
also.
judgment, but it's better than the people who are cheering it on. And the ones I worry about the most are the people who are making him into a martyr. And those are the people who I think are I have the
Oh,
biggest issue with.
like I heard that this company has like a grossly higher level of rejections than any other in the U.S.
Sure. But
Go to
that doesn't
jail
really tell
for
me
murder or something,
yes,
technically
because
speaking.
that doesn't the fact that they have a higher rejection rate does not tell me whether or not those rejections were valid or not. So unless you think that no claim should ever be rejected on for any reason,
Well,
which I
you
don't. I think there's valid reasons for insurance companies
it's
to reject a
true,
claim.
but if this particular company has this many more rejections, then that would either mean that this company rejects too much, or all the other companies reject too little, in your view.
Or they're just cheaper, and that means they get more denials of coverage. I don't know. I don't know, and
Are they
neither does
cheaper?
almost anyone else. This is a big thing. No one here, no one talking about it knows what they're talking about. They don't know why the claims have been rejected. They don't know what role Brian Thompson had in making the rejection rate that way. Had their rejection rate gone up or down since he took office? I don't know. Or not took office, since he became the CEO. Has he reduced or increased that rejection rate? I'm not sure. And most people, when they decided what they felt about this, didn't know either. And to be willing to celebrate or even just look the other way on a murder based on just guesswork is just not something I'll do.
Well, it's not
Again, I'm not
entirely
saying that I'm not
guesswork,
here to
right?
defend the health insurance companies, but I'm saying that vigilantism is never the answer.
Hold on, I've put you on. Have I? Hold on, I have to actually put you on screen. How have you been? How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I just returned from Ukraine.
How'd that
It's
go?
well, I've been doing interviews with organizations. I've been mainly focusing on one, Save Ukraine. Have you heard of Save Ukraine?
I have not. Tell me about it.
It's an organization that saves children that were kidnapped into Russian territory and also saves children that were living under occupation in Russia.
Interesting.
It's
That's really cool. That's a good thing, right?
yeah, it's a really good thing. How do I pop up the pop? I want to pop out the window
There
first.
should be a button on the side of the Discord. If you click on the
There you
pit,
go. Boom.
you see it.
I've popped you out, and now I can add you. There's a window
Are we
capture.
good?
Or
Are you
sorry.
ready to talk about what we came to talk about?
Yes. Although you've changed the topic a bit, I've seen.
Well, no, we're talking about orcs in
Yeah,
Dungeons and
where we
Dragons,
were
right?
supposed to be talking about whether or not they've gone woke, not if they're racist.
Either way, right? Like I think it's close enough.
It's not the
But
same.
please, how about this? We'll do it this way. You introduce your thesis, your argument, and we'll talk about it.
All
Sound good?
right.
Go
It
ahead.
sounds perfect. One moment, I'll have you on, and then I'll. Where's the Discord thing? Discord, the pit. That's it, right? Is that it? The pit.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You should introduce me to your audience or something.
Lucy Haze, everyone.
How's that?
Lucy Haze has been on my show before a couple times. She is someone who lives near Ukraine. She is very invested in Ukrainian issues,
Yes.
and she also has strong thoughts on role-playing games such as Dungeons and Dragons.
Exactly.
And a while ago, this has been a while in the making. A while ago, she talked and I talked about whether or not Dungeons and Dragons had gone woke or was racist or something along those lines. And we had a substantive disagreement. She asked if she could come talk to me about it on stream. I agreed, and here we are.
Yes.
Did I miss anything? Go ahead.
No, I don't think so. So I guess my opening thesis is very short. It's that from the very inception of Dungeons and Dragons, from the very first edition, orcs have been a pretty diverse project, a pretty varied project, and as the different iterations of worlds and scenarios have developed, very different versions of orcs have developed among them, and that this artwork that we've been discussing just fits with the trend of different types of tribes, different types of orcs, different type of lifestyle of orcs.
Give me
That's
1 sec.
That's basically
Let's see.
my thesis.
We can bring up the artwork in question.
Yes, I have it on my stream,
Can you DM it to me, please? And then I can have it on my stream too.
of course. One moment.
Just so everyone knows what we're talking about. So to again maybe clarify what we're going to be talking about today, this art direction and the lore direction that I think Dungeons and Dragons have gone with orcs, I feel does a disservice to the lore of orcs in role playing games, and I also just it's not for me. It's not a direction that I like, and I think that races
Yeah.
their lack of having evil races is bad for the game as a whole. But we'll talk about it
Okay.
as soon as I get the artwork. Give me a second.
The DM in our little group, right?
Either that or direct DM me. Either one. Either works.
Right.
And I can show you guys what the
Okay.
artwork is, and you can know.
Got
I know some of you are probably familiar with the artwork already, but I just want to make sure that everyone knows what we're
there
talking
you
about.
go. That's it. This is the artwork.
Let me show. You already have it up on your stream, so I'll just show it on
Yeah.
mine.
Have everything.
There we are, kings and queens. This is what we're talking about. We have the Mexican orcs. Okay, they're about to cross the Rio Grande and assault Fort Alamo. Okay, it's the new Keep on the Borderlands expansion. Okay, they have to get through the mighty wall before they get to their target, though. But yeah, this is the artwork. These are the orcs, or at least the half orcs, and how they're portrayed in
Yeah.
the new D&D. What do you guys think?
I have an expert
well-
on board, by the way. I'm cheating
Yeah,
because I'm consulting an expert who's in
that's
the
fine.
chat. A D&D expert has done some
Yeah,
research with me on the subject.
Fair
He
enough.
said, I'm
I,
interested what Wick thinks about orcs being in the lore exactly.
I think that orcs as a species, at least in the beginnings of the game,
Yeah.
were considered an wholly evil race. They
Oh.
had an evil god who created them. They were intrinsically evil, at least in the lore at the beginning. That has changed over time. However, I think it's to the detriment of the hobby.
Okay.
I think that it makes for better stories and better games if you have intrinsically evil races. And I personally think orcs are a good one for that.
Is it fine if I share screen with you?
By all means.
Right.
Right?
We're gonna
No slurs or nothing, okay, right? I don't want to see any.
no slurs. We're gonna go and sort of go to the basics and try to.
Does your friend who's an expert want to come on in?
No, she's a bit voice shy. It'll take her some time before she's
Oh.
able to speak. So let's give her grace, and let's
That's fine.
just focus on her expertise.
Whenever
But
you want to share your
let's
screen,
consult Because you've said that the orcs were an intrinsically evil race from the beginning, right?
In my opinion, yes.
So let's consult the very beginning. Let's consult the material. How do I share screen with you
It
here?
should just work. Hopefully, let me give you a roll, maybe.
Am I able to share screen with you?
Try now.
Yeah, I think I'm able to. So I think this should be it. Orgs D&D PNG. Do you see it?
Give me a second, and I might hold on. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, can you make it bigger?
I can zoom in.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Is
And
it
what's
okay?
the what is the source material we're looking at? What's the
It's the gosh, I'm gonna tell you what it is. I think it's the very first booklet for D&D, I believe. It's the manual 1974 Dungeons and Dragons white box 10 USD.
Okay.
So let's read. The number of different tribes of orcs can be as varied as desired. Once decided upon, simply generate a random number. Whenever orcs are encountered, the number generated telling which tribe they belong to. Keeping in mind intertribal hostility, when found in their lair, it will be either a cave, complex die 1 to 4, or a village, die 5 to 6. The cave complex will be guarded by sentries. A village will be protected by a ditch and palisade defense. One, and it basically describes orcs.
Yeah. It gives you
And
it gives a stat block
the
and things like
most
that. Yep.
important thing is this here, alignments. How alignments worked in the very beginning of D&D, right? They were
I'm aware
much
of the
more
alignments. Yeah.
simplified than later. You had law, neutrality, and chaos, right? And you will notice that you have chaos, which was basically combined with evil because you didn't have chaotic evil, you just had chaos, right?
Well, the evil wasn't an alignment back then for a
Yeah, but
very
it
good
was
reason.
it
Like there
was
was
sort of
good chaos, there was
inserted
evil chaos, there
into
was good law, there was evil law, there was good neutral, there was evil neutral. Right?
not from the very beginning.
Yes, though that's why they don't have a good and evil on here.
Yeah, but it wasn't. You still did not have you did not have the chaotic, evil, good, lawful, evil,
Yes, they
etc.
didn't use evil and good as a
Yeah,
base of alignment.
yeah,
That's true.
exactly. So you have chaos, where you have orcs, which
Yeah.
you would say makes them an intrinsically evil race.
No, that's not what makes them the intrinsically evil
Yeah,
race. They weren't
what
even
does?
intrinsically chaotic. They built cities, right? Some of them were more neutral.
Yeah,
Again, how
exactly.
earlier D&D worked, right?
Yeah,
Was it was a tale between a conflict between law and chaos, not good and evil, right? And
yeah,
so a party might align at times with orcs against the forces of law,
right.
right? That might happen. But again, from the beginning, through the lore, they were intrinsically evil.
Well, no, because you just said that evil and good was not a thing.
Not in the alignment and gameplay wise,
Exactly.
no.
Yeah.
But orcs, right, were created by an evil god, right, to do evil things. Grumpsh, I think was it called? Grumps? How do you guys spell this? Okay, help me out here.
Yeah.
Let me get it out.
Oh,
Grumpsh.
I've been told by my expert that the first iteration did not have the 9 alignments.
Well,
That is a later
exactly.
introduction.
Law, neutral, chaos. Those were the three.
Yeah.
We agree on
Yeah,
that.
we agree. So
Yes,
how
but
we so how
evil.
can we call
Okay,
orcs
because when you look
intrinsically
at the
evil?
role, okay, when
Yeah.
you look into orcs and the
Yeah.
lore about orcs specifically, right? In the lore, from the earliest things we have, it talks about how they're here. Let me get a source for you so
Yes.
that I can help you
Yes,
out.
please. We're looking at the first edition right now, right?
Okay, give me a second. Mhm. Yes. So,
Because the first edition description does not define them as evil or good.
well, it doesn't give much of a description at all in
Yeah.
that book, right? It just talks
So we
about
cannot call them
everything. But
intrinsically
we
evil.
know again because the creators put down their source material in Appendix K, Appendix J. I forget the exact letter, but they listed books from which they derived inspiration for their lore, for the game, and
Inspiration.
there's a whole list of books that they listed, which give a source of this is what we were inspired by when we made the game. These are the books we read. These are the things um, we consumed, the media we consumed when we made the game. This is inspiration we drew from. And in that appendix, right, you
Yeah.
have books like, obviously, Lord of the Rings, right? You have more than that, obviously. There's a whole list of them. But Lord of the Rings. And in that, again, Lord of the Rings, they are intrinsically, as a species, evil,
Yeah,
right?
but
They were
an
deprived of their
inspiration,
ability to choose.
right? But the inspiration can mean many things. Are we gonna base our arguments on the material, which does not describe an as intrinsic, evil, or are we gonna go by
The appendix
inspirations?
was included in the material.
Yeah,
Hold on.
but it says that it's an inspiration, not that we basically took the orcs from this material and we directly inserted it here. They said it was an inspiration. So that could have been an inspiration to the effect of there's this interesting race that we have here and we're gonna put it in our game. But an inspiration does not mean that the race is gonna be exactly the same, right? It's an inspiration. It's not a process of copying or just transferring from
So
one
can you
medium to the
show me
other.
in any uh that's fair, but you'd have to show me either a module or a short story in maybe Dragon Magazine or something, right? Something where an orc by the official material is considered to be good.
Oh, you mean in the first edition?
In any edition before the introduction of half orcs.
In
So
any
any edition um, before the introduction of half orcs. So
which
first
edition
edition,
introduced the half
second
orc?
edition, the basic edition, right?
Yeah.
Um, anything like that. Uh, if you could show me an
Oh.
example of either in an official module
Mm-hmm.
or in the player's handbook or the monster manual, perhaps, we can look. In fact, let's
Yeah.
get up. I think was the first monster manual was, let me see, in the first edition monster manual, 1977.
Right.
Let me bring that up. Let me see if they have a link to that. They do. Oh, it's just a wiki on it though. I want the actual thing. Give me a second, please. Hold on. You know
Yeah.
who might have it?
Who?
Multiculturalist James. Let me bring him in. He might
All right.
have a copy.
All right.
James, what's up, brother? You're live. Hello.
Go.
Hey, how's it
Hey,
guys?
do you happen to have a copy of the first monster manual,
Also,
1977?
I have
it's
the DM. Hello, can you hear me?
I
Yes,
can
we can
hear
hear
you.
you.
Yeah. We all can hear you.
You have a lot of stuff. Do you have a copy of the monster manual?
And the humanoid manual where we're at it. The humanoid handbook.
I have the DM's guide for AD&D, but I don't have the monster manual, unfortunately.
You
Sorry
have
about
the
that.
Okay.
humanoid handbook.
Humanoid hand. What would that be?
Well, I assume a handbook for humanoid races.
Okay, the one you just linked me, bonding stuff is from the Monster Manual 2 of AD&D, which is not the first one, but we'll look at it.
I have some screenshots from the monsters manual.
Please, I'm getting
I'm
up.
gonna put it out in a moment. But as my expert says, it was inspired by Lord of the Rings, not a Lord of the Rings RPG. And you could play as orcs. Humanoids handbook specifies it.
Does it have alignment restrictions?
I
I
assume
doubt it
so.
does.
No, isn't that a thing in D&D? You
No,
play with
for
as
orcs specifically. If you could play as orcs in the first one, I'm not saying you couldn't. Uh, I'm just looking for the entry for orcs in the link I just. Oh, this is so hard to navigate this. Okay, we have Oliphant. Oliphants are rare. That's funny. Ophidian otters. Why are there no orcs in this?
yeah.
Bro, you leaked me something without orcs in the. This is Monster Manual 2. No wonder. I need Monster Manual 1.
Oh, yeah.
Moment.
Monster Manual 1 should have that. If it's AD&D, to my understanding, it's going to be the pig orcs too. They have porcine noses.
Yeah.
Okay, second edition monster manual. Yes.
Here, I found it. No, these are
Okay.
demons. Devils.
There you go.
The artwork's
have it.
pretty good.
We have it here. Although it's, I need a better version.
Look, we all
There
need a
you
better
go.
version.
True. Copy link. There we go. Orcs are a
I'm almost-
species of aggressive mammalian carnivores that band together in tribes and survive by hunting and raiding. Orcs believe that in order to survive, they must expand their territory, and so they constantly involved in war against many enemies: humans, elves, dwarves, goblins, and other orc tribes. Orcs vary widely in appearance as they frequently crossbreed with other species. In general, they resemble primitive humans with gray-green skin covered with coarse hair.
I have this is from also the first edition Monster Manual on AD&D.
Yeah.
Let me put it on screen,
My goodness.
and we can
As a second
transfer
page
to that
here.
real quick.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a pig face orcs.
That's them. Yep, that's them.
That's you guys looking? They have a an alignment section here. That's interesting.
Yes.
Can you do you need that bigger? Or can you read that, Lucy? What's it say?
Or can I see?
Highlight. Do you see that? What's that say?
One moment. Can you? Are you sharing it with me or?
I am sharing the screen. Yes, check it out.
All right.
I've highlighted
I'm gonna
the
check it out.
particular spot.
Okay, where is it? Lawful Evil. Which
Yep.
which edition is this?
First edition AD&D. Pretty early on.
Advanced D&D.
Yeah, AD&D.
Hmm.
When again
So-
they transferred to the more common 9 stat
Wait, but
block.
your argument was that they were always an intrinsically evil race. We have not.
Yes.
That does not establish that.
Okay.
But
But
you cannot go to
when-
advanced
as soon
D&D
as
to
they
establish
have
that they were
evil-
been evil from the very beginning.
But as soon as they have evil as an option,
You cannot retrospectively said that therefore in all earlier editions have always been evil. No.
intrinsically evil through the lore, as
No,
when the
you
lore
cannot.
was there. Yes, you can.
Well, no.
You can look at the appendix,
because in
J, whatever it was.
the earlier versions they were not described as evil.
They were described as a chaotic race. They were chaotic or neutral, right?
Yeah, a
So
neutral
this
is not
does
evil.
represent
Neutral
a
is
change when they
neutral.
changed the alignment system. They changed orcs to lawful evil, but they've always been a form of evil.
Well, you cannot say that. No, they've been chaotic and neutral. That's not the same as evil.
Okay.
Neutrality,
Being neutral and chaotic
especially
does not
since in earlier
rule out evil.
especially since in earlier editions they have been when describing playable orcs, you have a description of orcs that try to be heroes, and nature is described in that handbook as more of a societal thing. It is said that orcs that become heroes and women orcs that are discriminated against in their society. Yeah, of course.
And what's this from? Here's from 1974. Let's look. The OD&D. Okay.
You
We'll
have
look
even
together.
specific lore within Forgotten Realms where your intrinsically quote unquote draws can be good. So, his
My
lore then
argument
would
is
be an
my argument specifically for orcs.
yeah.
Like
but
orcs
it's
specifically were created by an evil god,
let's
at least in the Forgotten Realms. But I'm not sure for the Greyhawk.
let's go to the
I'm looking for the orcs.
have it here
Are these
somewhere.
not? Are these not in alphabetical order? Okay, first of all, if I could go back in time to 1974, I
You
would
should.
make them list this in alphabetical order because that's insane.
Yeah.
It's not.
Did you ever get a chance to check out that vid I shared with you?
I did not.
It was interesting. Matt Colville, the guy who's making MCDM, the new one of the systems that's coming out on Kickstarter, he mentioned that there was this time in like 1974 because he needed wilderness expansion and then also what was the other one? Chainmail. You needed those to really understand how to play OD&D, and if you didn't have those, and you didn't have like a group to then like actually see how it's played,
Okay,
there are all these
sorry.
different ways that then D&D got
Can you
made up.
see?
So,
Okay, this is just the same thing you showed us earlier.
Yes, this is
right?
the humanoid handbook.
Where it doesn't.
Role-playing
It doesn't say.
suggestions. Player character orcs are not as rare as other humanoid races. The call to battle is not much different than the call to adventure, and orc heroes sometimes come to the forefront. If treated with care and patience, orc adventurers can become effective partners and allies. Because females have few rights in orc society, many of them turn to adventuring to escape their lot in life. A few orcs even attempt to reject their evil natures in order to try to become honorable warriors. While an orc will never become a paladin.
Hold on.
Let me finish.
let's pin that.
Let me finish.
They're evil natures.
Yes.
So by nature, they are evil.
Let me finish. While Orc will never become a paladin, some do attain the Orcish equivalent of holy warriors. However, those orcs that attempt to fight fair and with honor are sneered at and rejected by their own kind. Why fight face to face, the common orc thinks, when fighting from an advantageous hiding place is so much more effective?
Yes, but even in that quote
So,
that you just gave us, their nature is intrinsically
yeah,
evil.
but the nature is described here as more of a societal thing, not an inborn thing. Because if it was an inborn thing, you couldn't just decide to, oh, I
It
may
says
be
also that they'll
evil,
never become
but I'm
paladins. They
just.
can't. They literally cannot be good enough to be a
No, no,
paladin.
no, no. They
literally can't.
cannot be paladins. They cannot be granted the role of paladins, but they can be still honorable warriors.
Can you be evil and honorable? I think you can.
In fact, it says some do attain the orcish equivalent of holy warriors.
There are evil gods in D&D. Yes, and
So
also
if
neutral
they if
gods who accept evil warriors.
some orcs can attain the orcish equivalent of paladin.
Again, a paladin's a very specific thing. It is a holy warrior and a paladin are not the same.
But they still can be good, which would contradict that they're just intrinsically
Again,
evil, no?
nowhere in what you just said shows that they can be good. In fact, it does suggest that they can't be good enough to be a paladin.
Good enough, but not good.
Again, the words that they use are very particular. They use honor, things like that. Again, when they use evil,
Yeah.
they use it
So unless someone is a
naturally,
paladin,
or
they're not good?
have a natural evil nature.
Is that what you're saying? Humans
James,
cannot be, yeah?
Unfortunately, I don't have, like I said, the monster manual of AD&D and all that, but I did want to jump in with some of the maybe confusion about chaos, law, neutral, evil, good, all that stuff.
Please.
Yeah. So there are OSR books, old school revival or old school, I forget what the other ones are, Renaissance books that you can look at. So Old School Essentials is one of the most popular ones. What it tries to do is revive the BX rules and AD&D. This one for AD&D, which is Referee Assume, Advanced Fantasy, and then this one, Classic Fantasy. I found the section in the Classic Fantasy. I'm assuming it's going to be the same in the Advanced one if I look it up. Page 18, alignment. It already talks about it. All beings, whether PCs, NPCs, or monsters, adhere to one of the three philosophies or spheres of behavior known as alignments. These spheres are law, neutrality, and chaos.
Okay.
A player must choose one of these paths when creating a character. And a lot of other creators who are in the OSR space, so Kelsey Dion, I think she said this. I might be wrong, but I'm fairly sure she's like acknowledged it to some degree, who made Shadow Dark. They've basically acknowledged that like chaos and law are basic like approximations for what we understand as like being quote unquote good or evil. Like if you tried to redefine what evil is, a lot of people would define it as like being dangerous or something like that, right? And if you don't have like a civilization to then like necessarily stabilize yourself, well, that's more dangerous. Therefore, you could align it also with being more chaotic in that regard.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's one of the issues that we have. But
Orcs
as far as the
did have a type of civilization. They live in villages.
A type of civilization, but in terms
That's why
of like
they're also neutral, not just chaotic.
Sure, that can be that. I
and
think
also, yes, finish your thought.
I think probably giving to like the idea of like an entire, like a general entire, like what we're going to call like a fantasy species, race, whatever. I think it's only fair to imagine that there probably was just simply the concept there are evil things out there. Like we do, there's a really good YouTuber who does D&D, who did a D&D analysis called Legal Kimchi. He made this analysis about like Warhammer in terms of like the what is it, the Tyranids or the Xenomorphs from Alien, or the Terminator robots, right? Mm-hmm. These are all just evil. Like for basic understanding, they're just quote unquote evil, right? I think that concept probably plays a part in terms of like creating other fantasy genres as well, and I don't see a reason why we.
Again, orcs were created to be a antagonist to the character, an enemy to the character, an obstacle, if you will, to the player character. The player character was supposed to overcome the orcs. The orcs, again, were the enemy in
Yeah, but
every
that's
module
all.
that they appear that I can think of. Right, they were the antagonist. Now you could perhaps ally yourself with them on time to time, right? There was options for that, and a good DM
Well,
would allow those such things. But the idea
I'll let you
of
finish.
them being very brutish, being very dangerous, I guess is a good word, evil, for lack of a better term, was established very early on, and it carried out through the other editions until more recent editions have tried to move away from intrinsic racial characteristics, not just when it comes to morality, but when it comes to even stats and other things. D&D has largely moved away. So my whole argument here, right,
Mm-hmm.
is that D&D of today has moved away from the original spirit, right, of what it meant to be different races, what it meant to be, even different alignments. And I think that the modern editions of D&D have made the game less interesting, at least to me, because it does take away the intrinsically evil nature of certain species, such as the orcs.
So can I respond to all of this?
Of course, you can.
All right. So my response is that yes, orcs were supposed to be the antagonists to the player, but also more than just that. They were also supposed to be player characters. And from the very, very beginning, from the very first edition, you have described them as tribal race, that there are intertribal conflicts. So it's all setting based. You can very well have orcs because I guess I have a question for you. Can elves become paladins? Can dwarves become paladins?
In the older editions, it was human paladins, I believe.
Yeah, it was a human
Hmm.
specific role. So we cannot
Yeah,
say based on that that dwarves are therefore evil because they're not good enough to be paladins, right? Or that
No, but we
elves are
have
evil
specific examples,
because
and we have specific examples of them being good in the lore, and we have that in the old modules, right? As well as later
well we
editions
have
for a
example of
while.
them being good in here in the handbook,
Orcs,
the humanoid handbook that I've just shown,
mm. Again,
right? A
they
few
use
orcs
words
can
like
even attempt
honorable,
to
but doesn't use
reject their
good.
evil natures in order to try to become
Yes,
honorable
their evil natures
warriors.
would be the key frame there. They try to
And
reject their evil nature, yes,
yeah,
because
but the
they're
evil
dangerous
nature is
people.
described as more societal because once they are good, they are shunned by their society.
It
Same
doesn't
with
say
the
that they
women
good.
orcs.
They try to mimic honor. It tries to
Well,
mimic
it doesn't say that
honorable
they try
fighting
to
for
mimic it.
good.
It says
You know,
that they become, not that they just mimic it while being secretly evil.
we just have a fundamental disagreement on what that means.
On what means?
On
After
what the
all,
concept of being honorable means. I don't
from
think
the
it
very
necessarily
beginning,
means
orcs
good.
fell under chaotic as well as neutral, which automatically excludes them from just being intrinsically evil.
Again, evil and good weren't options. There was no good races either in the original D&D from
Yeah,
that definition, right?
because those
There was
things were
nothing.
just
There
as
was
was
no
implied that the
be good.
chaotic, dangerous,
Again,
aka evil,
assuming
just like was explained
right.
by our esteemed guest that is here. No, do you disagree with that?
Esteemed guest, go ahead.
you gotta throw it to me all of a sudden.
I
Yeah.
mean, she
Uh,
asked you.
true. I appreciate it, and thank you for the question, or I guess the throwing it back to me. I suppose one of the things that I always get kind of I don't know launched in whenever we have these conversations, especially whenever it's like anything during like overlapping with culture war issues or whatever that stuff is. The thing is that I like to keep an open mind for multiple different things. So on the one hand, I think I brought up the previous point to entertain the idea that there is the possibility that they were thinking just make it an evil species, race, heritage, ancestry, whatever you want. On the flip side of that, if I try to steel man what you're saying in this case, though, the fact is that it isn't the clearest transition from saying law and chaos to what we're trying to say good and evil, because they may very well just be their own categories separate of each other and not necessarily equivalent to each other, right? So I can guarantee, I don't mind saying that there is some kind of like wiggle room there. But if we had to kind of just give like a guess, especially like from how most of them are like depicted in like the lore, I wouldn't really then peg them as then being the quickest of allies of humans. I'd put it that way.
Yes.
If we're playing like in the AD&D, like
But I would
BX
not
white box
peg
setting.
them as intrinsically evil either.
I guess what
Hold on. If you come up, if you are playing a game of OD&D, right, of AD&D, right, and
AD&D
you
or
come
D&D?
AD&D, let's say that, and you come across a band of orcs. What do you think their reaction is going to be to coming across the player characters? Do you think it's going to be positive or negative? Just again, assuming they've never met each other before, right? They just coming on to each other. No reputations, right? You don't have an evil reputation or a good reputation. They just come across a band of adventurers. What do you think the orcs are most likely to do? Do you think they're most likely to attack them, or most likely, right, to try to parlay, most likely to make peace? What is the most likely scenario to occur in that set?
I think it depends. I don't think there's a clear answer. I think it's setting based.
I think
depends on. I think it also depends on who the adventurers are. What if all the adventurers are orc players?
It's so funny.
You can have a group made of only orc players. What then?
Wick, I was totally with you, like all the way up till the very end until I got to that last part, and when I heard it depends, like the hyper pedantic part of me was just like, oh god, it kind of does. And so here's what I mean by that. If you go into like the dungeon, and what I mean by this, and this might be wrong because again, I don't have the D&D manual. What I have is an OSR product, Old School Essentials, about the BX rules. Right. The thing that you can find in here is that if I find it, and if not, you know what, it might be in the fantasy rules. One of the rules is that you can roll for monster reactions as random. So that's very, very. I know it's pedantic, but I know.
But even
for everything,
even in those random tables, they have probabilities. So my point here isn't to say there aren't edge cases where they wouldn't kill on sight,
right?
Because there are, and we can imagine them, right? We can elicit, whether it be a random reaction roll, whether they have garnered a reputation for being friends of orcs, right? We can imagine scenarios where that would be the case. But I'm saying, all else being equal, the most likely occurrence, if a party of adventurers runs into a party of orcs, deadly conflict will then ensue.
I think that depends on the group.
By far the most likely event to occur in any edition of D&D.
I think it depends on the group. I think it depends on the setting. I don't think it's an automatic conclusion.
Well, here's a question, because I actually don't know the answer to this, but I'm willing to take a probability guess on this. If you had to guess, like, the depiction of orcs in most of the AD&D adventures, do you think that they've been depicted more as evil, like whatever we would call evil, whatever that's going to be, right? Or more as good?
It depends on which setting, which system, like Forgotten Realms, Dragonlance, etc. You had many different types of orcs in these. And some of them were depicted perfectly as good.
Okay, my initial instinct, and I could be wrong about this because I've not read every AD&D module, right? It's just that I'm fairly sure that they've been depicted as something potentially dangerous.
There are modules, there are systems in which orcs are depicted as good, brave, and honorable, and there are these human knights that invade them and try to enslave them and kill them, basically based on the US history. That's a thing.
Okay. Like, what modules are you thinking of?
Oh gosh, I have to look to my encyclopedia of knowledge. One moment, okay?
Okay, sure. And just to the credit, it may be out there, right? I'm not, like I said, I don't know all the AD&D modules.
By the way, because if we're not just limiting ourselves to Forgotten Realms, then yeah, absolutely, there are things in which orcs are depicted as good, and it doesn't violate.
We'll go with Greyhawk. We'll go with any official setting. Now, you can absolutely find unofficial settings, and I'm sure there are tons, where at a specific table, they played differently. And I've done that. I have, crazily enough, had my own lore and just ignored the official Dungeons and Dragons lore
You
because I
madman.
can do it better, and I can, and that's fair. But my argument is what the official lore was and
Mm,
what it's turning into, and the differences between those things.
Mm-hmm.
just for clarification, I'm going to look for the dungeon rules, but I went for the orc definition in this one, Old School Essentials.
Yeah.
What they depicted as is ugly, bad-tempered, animalistic humanoids who live underground and are active at night. Sadistic bullies who hate living creatures and delight in killing. And their alignment is chaotic from that point. From this depiction of, and this is an OSR book, granted, it's not AD&D, but they try to revitalize the theme, the general trajectory of what D&D was supposed to be, but just simply streamline it for people in the modern era to play it. That sounds pretty evil to me, in my opinion.
But the fact that you can have player characters playing as the orcs, and they can
Mhm.
be not
Players can be
evil.
evil.
Yeah, but they cannot be evil. That the handbook allows for that.
They didn't have again in that handbook. They didn't have evil as an option. They didn't have
Yeah,
good as an
but it
option. You
clearly
could
says
be.
that some orcs can achieve the equivalent of a holy warriors of the holy warriors. No.
You can be evil and and holy as well, right? Like you, these aren't
Well, no,
what's the
because
word?
they want
Mutually exclusive. That's
because
it.
they
Thank you.
want to reject the ways of their people, which points to it being societal rather than intrinsic.
But they can't get rid of their nature, right?
Well, it clearly says that they can.
Okay, they can try to overcome it.
Yeah, and they do.
That can create tension and conflict. But again, in the rules, in the lore, in the modules,
Well, this is part
the
of the
nature
rules. This
of
is part of the lore.
orcs, nature of orcs, the baseline nature of orcs are evil. They just are.
I'll say this to at least strengthen the pushback on their evil.
Okay.
For this, something tangential, not orcs necessarily, because drow come up from time to time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't. It's not my research on this. It's AJ Pickett. Highly recommend him. He's great. He does like monster lore deep dives on all the editions of like D&D creatures, just like Mr. Rex does. Highly recommend him. AJ Pickett does. He was in this conversation with Mr. Rex and somebody else. I forget who, but it was about basically drow nature, and then I think also talking about 4E to some extent at the very beginning. And according to him, I don't remember what he cited, but the whole idea was drow also have this kind of inherent evil to their nature. But apparently, in his research, he said that there's a technicality about that makes it not a like a permanent feature. That there is some kind of flexibility. He implies that there's some kind of flexibility that doesn't make it intrinsic as we would understand it, like
Right.
a biological fact, you know.
Yeah.
So there is that for whatever that's worth. I can't quote the source that he's quoting, but he's usually a trusted source.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I don't know enough about the drow specifically. I know what I read in the Drizzt books.
Yeah,
Right?
they were good.
You read them?
books. Yeah, I read them. All the whole
When I was a
trilogy.
kid, I loved them. Right?
Awesome.
You had your two swords, your scimitars, right? You had your panther pet, and
Which all crumbled to dust when you left the underground. But
it was pretty fun. But orcs are a different story, right? Orcs are again more animalistic than drow ever have been depicted. Drow were
animalistic does not necessarily mean evil. Keep in mind.
That is true, but combined with all the other information we have surrounding the orcs, how they were used in the lore, how they were antagonistic by default, right? How they were as a society, right? Intrinsically evil by nature, and how again even their own natures they would have to struggle to be not evil.
But
Here's something.
all those traits are applicable to the drow while we're getting on the drow train.
No.
Yeah.
Drow, at least Drizzt, was never evil.
Yeah,
Right? He
but
was
the
always, even
race
from his birth,
overall is
right?
depicted
Or
as
not
you
maybe
with the
from his birth,
traits
right? But
as you
from a young
depict
age.
them. They're always antagonistic. They kidnap people of all races as slaves. They treat it as the intrinsic nature. They worship an evil god, and it's all there.
No, so the difference is this. It's the difference between
The only difference
having
is the
anger issues,
animalistic
okay, and trying to
nature.
overcome your anger issues versus living in a society that rewards anger
Yeah, but
and
having
try
anger
to
issues
overcome
does
that.
not mean
There's a
that you are
fundamentally different.
intrinsically angry.
I'm using this as an example to demonstrate the example, at
I
least my
have to be
argument, for the
specific
difference
in this
between
in
orc
this heated
and drow
and angry
societies.
debate. Isn't that right, or esteemed guest?
I
We have
appreciate
to
the
be
title of this team.
highly
I
highly
feel like
specific.
so honored just being here. Thank you so much. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of ping ponging between both of you guys just for the sake of conversation. Like I said, I like to entertain all the ideas on this just because I don't know. It to me, the idea of closing off the possibility of an evil, like species, race, heritage, whatever, that seems like you're limiting your creativity. But at the same time, if you insist on having orcs evil, 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 that is also inherently limiting as well. So I, I like to be able to follow where a good story takes it. You know,
Because to
that's it.
me, personally, what the first iteration indicates and what the later seem to confirm that orcs are multi-tribal. Later, it was added that they were uh, sort of a nomad type of race, that they were nomadic, which actually pays pretty well into, I think the newest thing that we were seeing at the beginning depicts that pretty well in
The
nomadic
art
nature.
of them crossing the Alamo or crossing the Rio Grande to get to the Alamo, right?
Yeah,
And take back,
there are
right?
many different
The
types of orc
Mexican
tribes,
orcs. I
and
don't know.
they
It's just so
have
weird.
in their they have conflict with
He
one
had like a
another.
he had like a
So,
pencil mustache and like a sombrero. What I don't like. It was really bad.
well,
But
the art that you showed at the beginning was, in my opinion, not that bad. It just depicts the nomadic nature of a specific tribe, and I
hey,
think that you can have this type of tribe, and you can also have the typical earlier
you
depicted
could.
type of tribe, and they are
Obviously,
in
you can,
conflict
and
with
they've
one another.
decided to do that. They've decided to
I
the
mean,
the
they
official
were
D&D decided to go that direction.
they
I
could
just
be
disagree with that
neutral
direction.
or even attempt to be good from the very onset.
Okay.
And you had the description of many different tribes that live different styles and can and fight one another.
To
So
the I feel like the okay, I feel like I do have to back up the potential evil background a little bit now. So two different sources, or at least two different
all
references that I'm
right,
going to make. Mr. Rex, he did this fantastic deep dive on orcs. Mr. Rex, two X's, highly recommend him. He talked about how orcs had been different in the past. Like when we just looked it up in the, I think that was the white, was that the white back? No, that was the AD&D rule, I think. We saw that they were porcine orcs. They had pig-like features. Those have
mm-hmm.
changed over time. But the thing is that what apparently has changed in the lore is two things. There are two different types of orcs.
Mm-hmm.
There are orcs that live in the mountains to the north. And then there are orcs, and this is Forgotten Realms lore, just to be clear.
Yeah.
And there are orcs that are like, I think from a different portal or from a different like realm of existence where orcs are. Basically almost like Warcraft lore, right?
Right.
So when we see orcs in like 5th ed books and we see like Greenskin, basically the Hulk, right?
Right.
We see that come out. Those orcs are supposedly, according to like all the vast lore that exists within Forgotten Realms, two different groups. One is more evil, from what we would describe as being evil, than the
Right.
other. Like the other orcs that the other orcs that like came from the out of the portal, from my understanding, they have ritualistic, tribal traditions, all this stuff going with it, right? They can be dangerous and they can be like evil just as much, right? But there's not this reputation that they've had from like what people have known of orcs. That's the first thing. The second thing that I wanted to mention went along with the lines of, something else. Again, I'll reference people in this case. Professor Dungeon Master of Dungeon Craft mentioned this. He mentioned how another tangent in this case, a tangential heritage species race, etc., is the Dragonborn or the dragons themselves. I don't know if they were called Lizardkin or Dragonkin or something like that, or Dragon people. But from my understanding, from what he said, in the AD&D lore, you can't play them because what they're usually depicted as is dangerous or evil in that case. Now, I don't know if like that's supposed to mean that all Dragonborn are evil, but that should say something in terms of like what the general vibe is, right?
I can't speak to dragons either, but chromatic dragons are traditionally like you have the red evil, black evil. Then you have the metallic dragons. They're traditionally good. The gold good, bronze good, right? And so there is this divide there. Intrinsic racial good and intrinsic racial evil has been with us in D&D lore for a long, long time. I think it just does my closing argument here, because I do have to go, is
I
that I
think I
think it
won this
does
debate.
us fair enough. You can think that, but you can see that having intrinsic racial qualities makes for better storytelling and better gameplay, in my opinion. I think that having limitations does not restrict creativity, but helps it to flourish. The best designs are not just an open sandbox, right? But ones which you play within a set of variables, a set of conditions, in which you can use to help create an interesting scenario in a game. And I think that orcs having intrinsically an evil nature has a lot of potential. And I don't like that they've taken away a lot of these options, right? A lot of these ability to have, at least in the official lore, an intrinsically evil race to fight. There still exists somewhat with demons, devils, etc. But I do worry for the state of the game and worry for the state of the lore in moving away from that kind of thing. That's my closing argument. What's yours, Lucy? And then tell
Okay.
people where they can find you, and then we'll end the stream.
So my closing argument is that D&D as a thing, because we're talking about settings, and D&D as a rule set, and as a rule set it just allows people to create many different settings in which basically you can make the orgs however you want within these rules. And there are settings within D&D in which orcs are not evil at all, they're just good. And I would say that even within the first editions, let's say, orcs were giving enough flexibility to not just be intrinsically evil, but I would say the neutrality opened the room, and the description of different tribes that fight one another, the description of playable orcs as being able to take up a path of honorable fighting, of being different than their brethren. To me, that opens a road to different types of orcs that are not just intrinsically evil, and I think that enriches the world. I think that it makes for better stories, for having characters that are orcs that have dilemmas. They are supposedly like us, but they're so different. This tribe is so different from that tribe, and that's what creates this clash, this conflict between them. That is my closing statement. Also, I think I won this debate, this heated, bloody sports debate.
If you say so.
Also,
$5 from. Oh, where
yeah.
can people find you? Yes, where can people find you if they want to celebrate your victory?
LucyHaze.org/live is my page. Also, I'd like to have another conversation with the esteemed guest about this topic.
By
with
all means, I
specific
won't stop you.
Oh, sure.
settings.
But I will say, right, that a link to her Twitter is in my YouTube description. If you like what she had to say, if you'd like to see more of what she has to do, click on that link and you can find her. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you being willing to have the conversation. $5 from another new account to say Strahd von Zarovich did nothing wrong. Vampire unlives matter. Thank you for the Strahd reference, and thank you for the $5.
I appreciate that too. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah.
So maybe we'll
I'm
ask
glad
our
we have you.
esteemed guest at the end. Do you think orcs have gone woke?
Do I think? Oh, jeez.
Oh.
I think.
I will let you guys decide this on
Yeah,
your
yeah,
own.
yeah. You
For
got
my audience, if you've liked it, if you've enjoyed the show, whether it be my takes on the school shooter, whether it be my takes on Luigi, whether it be my D&D takes, right? Hit that like button. That's how you let me know. Hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. Christmas is coming up, and if you want to give me some money, you can throw me a super chat or two. That would also help. Tomorrow we're going to be talking to Armand. Let me make sure I get his name right. Armand Domalewski. He's a co-founder of Yimbies for Harris. I'm excited to have him on, and we're going to talk about politics, and it'll be fun. Thursday, we're going to have the maids panel. It should be interesting. And then Friday, I have a guest we're going to talk to as well. Tune in, 6 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. So, do you think the orcs have gone woke? I'm gonna ask, and then I'm gonna try to schedule with you another thing so that we can talk. My experts, possibly she might be able to speak as well.
I'd have to think about that. To be completely honest, it's. Do I think that it's gone woke? You have to define woke first. Is the thing.
That's true.
I think that there's been more ability. There's been more options that have been added for them. It depends on like the take. It's an unnecessarily complicated subject that honestly should just have more freedom to be able to do what you want to do with it.
Right.
I'll put it that way, but it's that I'll leave it at that in general.
I think it's a good sentiment. You should
I
just be
appreciate-
able to do whatever you want within a given setting. Since it's a rule book, it's not a setting per se, right? D&D.
There's settings, but as I've been listening to Sly Flourishes of the Lazy Dungeon Master again during everything, one of the things that he's always mentioned is that in gameplay, there's some people who want to then stay strict to a setting, and that has its own quality. And then there's a lot of people who would say, like, look, just add your own stuff. Just if you have a great idea, just go with it. And that was actually an idea that was brought about by Deficient Master, another D&D online content creator.
Yeah.
If you got a good idea, go for it, because you don't know if you're going to have a next session next time. But I'll just there's many ways to make different stories. I think being open to possibilities is just, in general, as a general rule, a good way to go. But yeah.
So
But
would
yeah,
you be open to a conversation another day on alignments and characters in different settings?
Possibly. It does depend. Yeah, just shoot me like a DM here, and I'll be able to check out what my schedule is.
What's your name here?
Oh, just here. What is it? Hold up. Let me.
The multiculturalist
Yep.
James.
There you go. Yep.
Are you on with Discord?
Hold up. Let's. Hold up. Let me.
Yeah. No. None of my pens are working right now.